it could be said that what we're saying with regard to the thinking mind being like a genie isn't really utilizing a myth or a fairy tale, but that all we're really doing is just using a simile, and we're saying the rational mind is like a genie. We could also say lots of things like that, and people do use similes to try to talk about the rational mind all the time. The rational mind is like a computer, or the rational mind is like a Ford Transit van, or anything. And sometimes these similes are good, sometimes they're not particularly good or don't particularly tell us anything. But we're not using the idea of the genie as a mere simile. It goes a hell of a lot deeper than that. And once we understand how the thinking mind works and exactly what it does, then it becomes easier to see just how good a symbol is, a genie is for the thinking mind. So the idea is that the thinking mind creates realities for us. And that might not be the way that we normally think of the thinking mind, but that's what it does. It creates realities for us. Whatever we think, we can create, and having created it, it's a world, it's a reality, and the whole world we see around us is what we have been able to think. And what we think, we turn into a goal, and then we bring that goal, we realize the goal, and there the thinking has become real. It's become a world, it's become an environment. So that's great. We think of all these wonderful things, and as soon as we think about them, we can actualize them. And this process of having a thought, having an idea or goal, and actualizing it is like a sacred thing to us. It's the highest expression of empowerment that we know about or talk about. This little business of having a thought and getting that thought to be a reality. It's like, what could be better than that? I mean, it's the ultimate. If only you could do that. And then we have all these stereotypes that yes, you can get what you want, and maybe it'll be difficult, but you have to keep on trying and trying and trying, and you will eventually get what you want if you really work at it and you don't give up and you don't get put off. And the idea that we can all find fulfillment, that we can all get what we want, and that we shouldn't be discouraged, even though life is full of discouragements, is very prevalent. There's a TED talk I noticed the other day about how each one of us can get what we want. So all that type of talk is fine from that particular viewpoint, which is a simple-minded viewpoint, really. And if we were not to be so simple-minded, we could say, yes, we can have a thought, and we can actualize it, and we can create the reality using thought. And that can be done, and the actualization of the goal can happen. But the nuance that we're adding there is that, and when it happens, it shall be bad news. So that's the nuance. Not particularly pleasant nuance, really. We don't like to have that thrown into the mix. It takes all the glory away, all the excitement, all the euphoria away. Because we want to live in this world where it's as simple as that. So the question is, why do all of our wishes coming true turn out to be not such good news after all? And we can actually say that no matter what thought it is that we have across the board, it could be anything, when it's realized or brought into being, although there can be a period of excitement following this, that period of excitement, which is like a chemical reaction, like burning magnesium in oxygen, very intense, lots of heat produced. That period of excitement is followed by a period of desolation, and the desolation comes about because of the inert or blank nature of what thought has created for us, of the world that thought has created for us. Now, it doesn't really matter what world thought creates for us, because every world that thought creates for us is a world that is created by thought. So it's all thought. Whatever it is, it's just thought. So straight away, you could maybe smell a rat because we're not actually getting anywhere different, and we're not doing anything different. We're just playing about in thought-created realities. And the flavour of all thought-created realities is exactly the same. There's great uniformity there. So what we can say about thought is that thought specifies, and specification equals sterility. If you wanted to have a type of a slogan, we can just remember and keep coming out of it. Specificity creates sterility. To specify is to create a sterile world. And we have to specify if we're going to create anything. We have to. The whole point about thought is that it specifies, it says what is in no uncertain terms. It points at particular configurations of reality. And the reason why anything that's specified as sterile is easy to see once we spot it, because the reason it's sterile is because what's specified is specified. It is what it is, and it's nothing else. So that's the limitation. A specified reality or a specified outcome is only that, and it'll never be more than that, and it can never be more than that. Otherwise that wouldn't be a specification. So if we say that it is a good thing to have this outcome, and then the outcome is brought about, then nominally that's a good thing and we get to feel good about that. In reality, it isn't a good thing, because once we've got over the euphoria of having got our own way, having created what we want to create, or having had thought create what we've asked it to create, then the fun and games is over, really, because in a specified reality, all there is in it is what we knew was going to be in it from the onset. There's no surprises in it. There's no depth of potential in it at all. It's just, that's it. You've made your bed, and now you lie in it. And there's nothing more to be done, because there's been a specified reality is a reality that stays the same, and it doesn't go anywhere. And so that's the same as the point I was making about defined environments. Environments that are created by us, defined by us. They're great for doing exactly what they're defined as being there to do. But that's it, nothing else at all. Something that's really an environment that's highly specific only supports the behavior and the thinking that goes with that very specific environment. It supports that, but it doesn't support anything else. So we can see that a non-designed world, a chaotic world, a non-specific world, a world with uncertainty in it, doesn't trap us in that way. So, in a way, thought is a genie because it's as if anything we think of becomes real. And that might sound stupid because I can sit here and think of all sorts of things and they're not going to become real. But in another sense, it is true. As I said earlier, this designed world that we live in only came about because we thought about it, because it is our thought. So if we hadn't thought it, it wouldn't be there. So we do congeal our assumptions, our expectations about what the world should be around us in that way. And that's what I mean by what we think automatically becomes real. And that actually can happen as well in a more instantaneous state. We find, for example, if we were to take a good dose of LSD, then it's possible to be in this situation where I could think, oh my God, this is going on. And it is going on because as soon as I think it, I've crystallized that reality. And if I think something else, I'll crystallize that reality. What we learn when we're tripping is not to crystallize realities, because to crystallize a reality is to get trapped in it. And there's no such thing as a good reality or a bad reality, because you're trapped either way just as much. And the true reality, which isn't a projected reality, is something that has no relation to our expectations or our assumptions about reality. It's always strange. We don't project strangeness. We don't know how to do it because we have no way of specifying strangeness. We can't project it. Strangeness can only come from outside of ourselves. So any reality that we do project is kind of banal. It's never going to be strange. It could be scary or it could be attractive, but it is banal all the same. Now, in this situation, we kind of might say, oh, it's great if you can be in a situation where anything you think can become true, because you think, wow, that's the position of having the genie that can make anything come true. But we very quickly learn that anything that turns into a reality as a result of our thought process is a sterile reality, a closed reality, because it is only what our thinking says it is, and it is nothing else. And so to believe in it is to be cut off from everything else in the world apart from what we have said reality is. So we've been hoisted by our own petard, and we've been trapped in our own achievement, so-called achievement. We've closed the world down with our thinking, so the world becomes a reflection of our thinking. And even though we might think naively that will be a great thing because we'll think something good, in practice it doesn't work like that. For one thing, if we do find ourselves in that situation, the fascination and the perversity of the mind is such that we will crystallize a terrifying reality. We'll almost always go for the terrifying reality. And even if we did crystallize a reality which is like our idea of heaven or something good, it's not a genuine heaven because it's two-dimensional. It's just, as I keep on saying, a projection, and it's sterile. It's a closed world because nothing new can come in it because it's been defined. So the only creative act is not to make a reality or to say to thought, please make me create this reality that I have in mind. Any time we do that, it's bad news. So the creative thing, the liberating thing, is not to create a reality, not to wish for anything, which is not how we usually would see it, But as we get wiser, we realise the wise thing to do is not to create a reality. Steady on there. Just don't do it. You want to do it, but don't do it. Just don't go there. Don't do it. And let reality be what it is in itself, which is uncertain, instead of making it certain. So in that case, we can see how thought very easily can have this role as being a creator of worlds. And we can also see how this seems like a great thing. And we can also see that, like the demiurge creating the false reality that we're in, or the prison reality that we're in, beyond the apparent abracadabra, hocus pocus kind of creating something in there, isn't it great? So we say, yeah, isn't it great? What follows on from that moment of triumph is an endless, unlimited period of interminable period of tedium. So that's what happens when we create realities for ourselves, or when we ask thought to create a reality for us. And not only do we create a sterile reality for ourselves, a closed world for ourselves, at the same time as we do that, we're creating a self which is also a closed thing. The closed world is a world that's always the same. It is what it's defined as being. It is defined as being. So is the mind-created self. It's also closed. It's just what it's defined as being. It's not alive. It doesn't partake in the flow, which is reality. It's just this static idea, which inhabits a static idea of a world, which is only an idea, which is why it's static, because the world isn't static. So we get sucked into this state of mind, which J.G. Bennett calls a psychostatic state of mind, and we can spend our whole life in it. But it's sterile, it's a prison. And one more way of talking about the thinking mind, maybe to go into it a tiny bit more, is to go back to what we were talking about with regard to quantum theory, and say, well, the thinking mind is really the decider. That's its function. It decides, or it'll be this, or it'll be that, or I'll go for that, or I'll go for this. So in quantum theory, the whole idea is that when we make a decision like that, that collapses the wave function. So before we do that, it's as if the universe hasn't made up its mind about what state it's going to be in. And because it hasn't made up its mind, it's in all of those states, and not specifically any of them. And then, if we come along and we decide to look at things in a certain way, then the indeterminacy collapses and becomes determinate, and we get a reality that matches the way that we've chosen to measure reality or look at reality. And that's the basic idea of how the observer influences what they are observing. So we can say, taking a parallel from that, we can say that the way thought works is that it acts upon indeterminacy and collapses the situation where all possibilities are equally allowed. It collapses it into just the one possibility. And then the one possibility becomes like a granite edifice that we are trapped in. So we've gone from the state of freedom to the state of being trapped, which is, as I said in the last installment, that is the experience of Mercurius. It goes from being infinitely mobile to having zero mobility. And this transition is mediated by the thinking mind, because the thinking mind is the decider. And that is how the thinking mind is the conjurer, or the genie, who creates a reality for us, which is supposedly a great thing. Okay, thanks for watching.